Can we all just give Natasha another round of applause? Thank you very much, Natasha. That was wonderful. Quite a few things that I was unaware of myself. Fun fact, I was just speaking to my parents about this event and just sharing a little bit of information about it. And I've known my father all my life, and he's always been like this very confident, outgoing, and he always stands up for himself and advocates for whoever needs it. And I came to find out that when they had, him and my mother had first moved to London, Ontario to go to school, they had to deal with a lot of discrimination. And my father was always the first person to stand in line and organize a group and start educating people and kind of like fighting back in a way. So I'm looking at him with different eyes, in a different light, and saying, wow, you keep quiet about all these experiences, but these things are so important to share with your children so that they know that they should carry that same attitude forward. So it's always great to hear such wonderful things that have happened in the past. So are you enjoying yourself so far? I can't hear you say, oh yes.
Oh yes.
One more time, oh yes.
Oh yes.
Okay, wonderful. So just a little housekeeping things here. If you're parked from this angle, right side of the building, there is a gate, so you are at risk of having your car locked in that area. I'm not sure for how long, maybe a couple days, but I would suggest you move your vehicle to Huntington Wood, right in front of the building here, right? Yes, so there's parking 3-hour limit. Right. Okay, great, wonderful. It looks like everyone is okay now. We'll continue with our program. So our second speaker, her name is Deirdre McCorkindale. She's a PhD student in her 4th year at Queen's University with a primary research interest in the issue of race within Canada and the United States, with an emphasis on African American and African Canadian history. Her current research concerns the nature of education and intelligence testing in southwestern Ontario, specifically from the mid-19th century until the mid-20th century. Under the supervision of Dr. Barrington Walker, her dissertation analyzes 1930s racial intelligence study of Kent County's Black school children, which detailed the history of 19th century Black education in Kent County. Please welcome Deirdre McCorkindale.
I just wanted to say thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to speak here. And I'm actually going to be building a little bit on what Natasha Henry already spoke about, but more specifically, she gave me a great introduction, and I'm going to talk to you today more specifically about the town of Chatham. So the city of Chatham is located in southwestern Ontario, about 2 hours drive from the Windsor-Detroit border. It's a small place known mostly for its role in the auto industry, but what many people don't know is that in the 19th century, Chatham was also home to one of the most active and vibrant Black communities in the country. In the 19th century, Chatham was a terminus on the Underground Railroad. And for those who don't know, the Underground Railroad was the name given to the group of networks, routes, and guides and safe houses used to help African American slaves escape to freedom in the northern United States, but also in Canada. Living in Canada gave former slaves an added element of safety because being on Canadian soil meant that American fugitive slave laws did not apply to them. As a result of Chatham's nearness to the border, it made it a prime spot to settle for African Americans leaving the United States. Chatham's role as a terminus on the Underground Railroad makes it really famous for fugitive slaves. Unfortunately, because of this, the story of freedom from slavery tends to overshadow the history of the community itself. And there are records of some black settlement in the area as early as the 1700s, but the real influx of black settlement was in the 19th century with black people crossing the border from the US. Some of them were fugitive slaves, but there were also many free people of color, some of whom were educated and skilled in trades, who also decided to make their home in Chatham. This makes Chatham more unique than is usually presented because it was populated not just by former slaves, but by a mixture of professionals, middle-class people, working-class people, all black, working together to form a community. Kent County, which was the county that Chatham was in, was also home to two other black settlements also mentioned by Natasha Henry. The Don Settlement, located in present-day Dresden, and the Elgin Settlement, located in North Buxton. Though separate, these communities communicated and intermingled with each other, and it's through this intermixing different groups of black people from all walks of life, Chatham was able to build a vibrant community with black businesses, medical practices, a newspaper, all while building a reputation for a significant involvement in activism and abolitionism. Chatham became so well known as a successful black settlement that it was named the Colored Man's Paris in 1857 by the Reverend R.R. Disney, no relation to Walt Disney. So what I'm going to be doing here for the rest of my talk is providing an overview of the history of the black communities in Chatham by providing some brief snapshots of the lives of some important black figures in the history of Chatham, but also so often Chatham is regarded as an important hub on the Underground Railroad, but the lives of people outside that link to slavery is overlooked. So I want to talk about them when they lived in Chatham, not about their lives as slaves. So my aim here is to demonstrate both the richness and diversity of the lives and histories of black community members in Chatham beyond those limits of slavery. By 1850, as Natasha pointed out, one-third of Chatham's population was black. In fact, abolitionist William Still commented in 1860 that, quote, "It is well known from one end of Canada to the other that the colored people are nowhere so thickly settled in any town or district as Chatham." This population of blacks laid the foundation for many famous activists and professionals to visit and also make their homes in the city. Marion Shadd Cary was born in Wilmington, Delaware, to free parents who were active in the Underground Railroad movement. In the 1850s, like many blacks, free or otherwise, Shadd moved to Canada, first settling in Windsor, and during her time in Canada, Shadd became an active promoter of black immigration to Canada to build their own communities and become self-reliant. She heavily promoted this through her weekly newspaper, the Provincial Freedman, which was first printed in Windsor in 1853. The paper's motto was, "Self-reliance is the true road to independence." It was published in Windsor from 1853 to 1854, Toronto from 1854 to 55, and in the city of Chatham from 1855 to 1857. She did not list her own name for her articles to conceal its female involvement, but this newspaper, the Provincial Freedman, which for a time made its home in Chatham, was the very first newspaper published by a black woman in North America. As such, she was also one of the very first black female journalists. The paper was a pillar of the black community, and it was also a very outspoken critic of the treatment of black people on both sides of the border. Shadd and her paper were also very critical of the segregation that existed in Canada, especially in terms of racial segregation of schools. Shadd did eventually return to the US from Chatham, where she recruited for the US Army. Later in life, Shadd completed law studies at Howard, also making her one of the very first Black women to earn a law degree in North America. Chatham was also a place where Dr. Martin Delany lived for a period of time. Martin Delany was born free in the United States, was a contributor to Frederick Douglass's newspaper, The North Star. He was one of the first 3 Black men to be accepted to Harvard Medical School after studying medicine in Pittsburgh. Now, he was eventually denied entry into the school due to a petition. And actually, after this, he wrote a book entitled The Condition, Elevation, Immigration, and Destiny of the Colored People of the United States, Politically Considered. In this book, he argued that Blacks should leave the United States because he believed that if they stayed, they would never be granted the full opportunities that whites had. Initially, he suggested immigration to South America or the West Indies, but as time went on, he argued and made significant efforts to settle a Black colony in Liberia. This is why some have suggested that Delany was one of the very first proponents of Black nationalism, an ideology which later came to be identified with Marcus Garvey. He settled in Chatham in 1856. He was instrumental in containing a cholera outbreak in the city in June of 1856 by implementing a quite advanced 4-point sanitation system to help combat it. While living in the city of Chatham, Delany continued to be involved in anti-slavery and anti-racist causes. He wrote for Marianne Shadd's newspaper, wrote portions of a rebuttal novel to Uncle Tom's Cabin, met with anti-slavery activist John Brown when he was recruiting for his raid on Harper's Ferry in Chatham, and campaigned for Archibald McKellar for Canadian Parliament against his racist opponent Edwin Larwell. Larwell was actually actively trying to stop Black immigration altogether. Much like Shadd, Delany left Chatham when the American Civil War broke out, and in the 1860s he served as a recruiter for the war, and he was even granted an audience with President Lincoln. Lincoln was so impressed with Delany that he later commissioned him as a major, making him the first Black line field officer in U.S. history, the highest rank of any African American in the Civil War. These are just a few examples of some people, some really famous people who lived in Chatham. They may not have stayed a long time, but the city and its population was vibrant enough that activists such as these saw this as a place that fostered their ideas, and thus they were able to make great strides towards social change in both the US and Canada. Chatham was well known as an abolitionist community, but Chatham's probably most famous abolitionist event was the John Brown Convention, held in May of 1858. John Brown was a white abolitionist born in Connecticut. He was a passionate abolitionist who believed that the only way to end slavery in the United States was through armed insurrection. The insurrection that Brown would lead was in Harper's Ferry, Virginia, where he planned to raid the federal arsenal with the hopes of arming slaves there so that they could take their own freedom. This plan was attempted on October 17th of 1859 and ultimately failed. Brown chose Chatham to recruit allies because of its Black population and the number of influential leaders. We do not know how many people from Chatham actually pledged to go on the mission of insurrection with John Brown, but we do know of one who did go. His name was Osborne Anderson, and he was a printer's devil for the Provincial Freedman newspaper. And of all of those in the raid who were killed or captured in the failed raids, Anderson alone managed to escape. He wrote an account of the events in a pamphlet called A Voice from Harper's Ferry. And like Delany, Anderson would also later join and fight in the Union Army. And I'd like to say too, while it did fail, the raid on Harper's Ferry, Virginia was still considered a very devastating blow to the slaveholding South, and is credited with pushing the U.S. even closer to the Civil War, and recruitment for it happened in Chatham. So far, many of the people and events I've mentioned make frequent reference to the United States, and this is because many of the members of Chatham's Black community were either former slaves or free people of color from the U.S., many of whom never fully lost their ties to their roots there. However, Chatham itself boasted some major accomplishments for a Black community within Canada as well. Chatham was home to many Black churches, including the British Methodist Episcopal Church, First Baptist Church, and African Methodist Episcopal Church. The latter two actually still exist today, and they still have membership today. The city was made up of craftspeople, professionals, workers, seamstresses, and cooks. Between 1855 and 1865, at least 4 Black doctors practiced medicine in Chatham. The city also contained several Black-owned blocks, So in this instance, a block is a large building that holds one or more businesses. For example, Boyd Block was operated by Grandison Boyd, and it housed a successful mill. Murray's Block was owned by Nathaniel Murray, who owned a shoe store, a crockery store, and a furniture store. The Hunton Block was built by Samuel Hunton, who was a carpenter. His block also housed the medical practice of Dr. Anderson Abbott, who moved to the area in 1871. Abbott served a year as president of Chatham's Medical Society and was one of the very first coroners in the area. In terms of individual businesses, George Reeves was a blacksmith who owned a flourishing business in the 1870s. He was an expert in edging tools such as axes, knives, and chisels. He was also an accomplished harpist. James Monroe, Gunsmith Jones, owned and operated a gunsmith shop. He was reported to have been an excellent craftsman engraver. He also won first prize for an assortment of firearms at the Grand Provincial Exposition in Montreal in 1860. He also attended the John Brown Convention I mentioned earlier and became a magistrate in Chatham in 1874. Jones's Chatham-born daughter, Sophia Jones, taught school in Canada for many years before moving to Ann Arbor, Michigan, where she would graduate as the University of Michigan's first black female doctor. So these are just some of the business owners and professionals and craftspeople who lived in Chatham, many of whom were heavily involved in civil rights and abolition on top of their careers. However, I just wanted to end this short discussion of Chatham with an accomplishment that sometimes gets overlooked in the area, and that's the issue of education. Excuse me. In 1824, a common school called the Princess Street School was built for black children in the area by the government because white residents would not allow black children to attend the school that was already present. This school was often financially neglected, but it was still a testament to the black community, who constantly fought for better conditions and also for racial integration in education. But this was not the only school built by Chatham's black community. Amidst the racist climate in Chatham, the community built two other schools, one which focused on academics, the other which focused on industrial skills, the Wilberforce Institute and the Woodstock Institute, respectively. And I also want to stress here that even though these were established for and by the black community, they were still open to whites and First Nations students. The black community explicitly stated that they would not exclude anyone to attend their schools. The aim of the Wilberforce Educational Institute was to provide a sound secondary education and prepare students for university studies in areas such as art, law, and medicine. It was also meant to prepare students for jobs as educators and business people. The school was also used after hours for other forms of education, such as woodworking, wood finishing, and I think they also did some metal work as well, demonstrating that people who lived in Chatham understood the importance of academics as well as industry and trade in building a strong community. The school closed at the end of the 19th century, but the building continued to be used by the black community for many years. The Woodstock Institute was established in the early 1900s. The school was an industrial school, which means that it focused on skilled labor, which was an increasingly vital education to receive when the world was increasingly industrializing. They taught skills such as painting, blacksmithing, nickel plating, dressmaking, sewing, music, and eventually wireless telegraphy, taught by Harold Jackson, who was also instrumental in starting CFCO, one of Chatham's first radio stations that is still actually operating today. The school remained until 1927 and then became the J.G. Taylor Community Center, named for one of the founders of the school. So even after the school was no longer in use, the community still used it for other projects. Chatham's Black history is quite rich, and I haven't covered a whole lot of stuff in this. It's a shorter presentation. And it's unfortunate so many times when his Black history is discussed, it centers on slavery and not the actual people who lived there and made their contributions. The Black Chatham residents were so much more than a singular slave story. They were business owners, activists, landowners, workers, writers, professionals, and teachers. It was this mixture of people that made Chatham a central hub for Black activity, a legacy which deserves to be recognized.
Thank you very much, Deirdre. Let's all give her another round of applause. A question that did come to my mind while I was listening was, I haven't been to Chatham ever, but how many Black people are there right now? How many would actually still be there? And even those that are there, do they know the history of Chatham? And are they thinking to themselves like, oh, I'm the new person or I don't belong here type of, feeling. So those type of things were coming to my mind. So thank you very much, Deirdre, for that bit of history. Okay, so we're gonna have a break shortly, but I want you to I may have won a prize, I'm just saying, but just give yourself a pat, check your pockets, check your purses. Do you have your keys? Because I may have just won a new car. Anyone driving a Nissan?
Yeah, me.
What's on the passenger side? What's on the seat?
What's on the seat?
Yeah. Yes.
My wife.
We better go get her then.
I lost my keys.
Yes. What's your set of keys? What they look like?
Well, they're on that hook. There's about 5, 6 keys on it. You got it. I'm gonna give you my keys. Give her my keys. You know I lost them? No, I got a hole in my blue jeans. These are new models. I got a hole in them. Darn keys fell out of the hole. Brand new jeans. Too, they got a hole.
I thought that was my special gift. Okay, also, we're going to have a break now, and we'll continue on with a few special guests. And in between, just a reminder to everyone that we definitely have the opportunity to shop around and check the vendors, see what they have going. But we ask that you do so during the designated times, just so that we are respectful to our speakers and we're making sure that we're paying attention and taking in the information that's being provided to us. So thanks you all. So I would like for everyone to please find your seats. We would like to introduce a special presentation. Okay. How are the refreshments? Everyone is refilled and ready to go? Say, oh yes? One more time, oh yes? Awesome, wonderful. Okay, so, as I said, we have a special presentation, and it's the Harambee Dance and Education Program by Rhythm Fit Inc. Entertainment. So this program, the Harambee Dance and Education Program, provides dance instruction in traditional and modern Afro-Caribbean dance styles. The program is designed to expose children and youth ages 5+ to the rich and multifaceted history of the Caribbean through dance, history lessons, and theatrical presentations. So I've seen these young people hopping around, they're ready, they're energized, and they're really looking forward to seeing your smiling faces and are really looking forward to entertaining you. So I would like to welcome them to the stage. So please give them a very warm welcome. Wow, that was lovely, wasn't it? I don't know about you, but I couldn't help but kind of try to dance along with them. That is wonderful. So there is another presentation, so please welcome the young ladies again.